looking at the construction here. It's so easy to build in Thailand. Oh, it's just like in Canada, because we have freezing temperatures for 3-4 months below zero, right? We cannot, any concrete foundation we make has to be below what we call the frost line. And the frost line is how deep the ground freezes over the winter. And in our area, that's 4 feet. So any construction we do, the concrete base has to be at least 4 feet underground. And any pipes, water pipes, have to be deeper than 4 feet, because if they're not, they freeze and break. And then we have this interesting thing called frost heave. So that ground of 4 feet, which freezes and thaws, freezes and thaws, freezes, it moves. So like we have one little building, our office building, and we didn't insulate correctly, just the front step. And the frost heave broke the concrete. So it's very, very complicated. And or say the land of Tisarana is on what we call the Canadian Shield, which is a geological formation that was scraped by the glaciers. Say 10,000 years ago, there was 2 kilometers of ice above us. 2 kilometers of ice, that's a lot of ice. And so the glaciers just scraped all the topsoil. And so you have bedrock. And so if we want kuti, if we want water pipes at the kutis, we would have to dig into the bedrock 4 feet, which is impossible, right? Or we'd have to drop a well at each kuti, which is expensive. So we don't have water at the kutis. But it's not a problem, but it's much, much, much more complicated. So I see, these here in Thailand, also insulation. You have bricks, podi. We have like this much insulation. It's very, very complicated to build. Anyway, I've built a few monasteries, so I think of these things. I haven't built them. I've never been a part of it. Okay, so a little bit of Dharma. Let's say you are part of a chat group, email chat group, and maybe 20 people, and you discuss this and that. And all of a sudden in the email addresses, you see a name pop up, and that person has been hurtful to you, right? They've hurt you or done something nasty or cheated on you, whatever. And as soon as that name pops up, it's not a neutral name anymore. It's not like Derek. It's something more serious. And that seriousness is sanya. The history you have with this name, with this person. And that triggers off a particular kind of story in your mind, the story of this hurt that you've had. And that's very much what Luangpor Viradhammo would teach about rebirth. So you have with phassa, contact as condition. So what is phassa? All you see is some digital stuff, but it has a feeling in it, and the feeling is historical and in this case hurtful. And then all of a sudden that you just reborn into thinking, and the whole story now is living in your mind, or your mind is inhabited by a story. And this is one of the ways we think about rebirth. And you can notice that. You don't have to believe it or disbelieve it. And so the mind is just dwelling in this story. And it certainly seems real, and it is real in some sense, it's there, but yet you can then be thinking in that story, that person, and it's not just about that person, it's the sanya creates you, that sense of self. So there's with that person as condition, there is a sense of self that's born. So actually, self and other are one thing. They're one package. They're one story. And then maybe you look at that, and then someone rings the phone, and you answer the phone, and it's gone. That world has disappeared. It's no longer there anymore. So it really is minor. It is uncertain. So much of our preoccupation with thinking is in these realms of self and forms of rebirth. And any meditator has to figure out what kind of language would help them to not get reborn in that sense. Now, say in the case of like someone who, let's say, cheated you in business matters, you still have to be what we call streetwise. Do you know what streetwise means? It's like if someone's trying to sell you the Empire State Building, you say, I don't know. I don't know if this is going to work. You're wise to the street. You know, you're not naive. What's naive in Thai? Huh? Yeah? Everyone got that? I didn't. But naive. Yeah? You're not. So it doesn't mean that you approve, right? That or that you are naive and don't say, I don't trust you. You have to do that, or you know, I mean, you have to be tough sometimes and assertive and say, no, you're not trustworthy. But what we're talking about here is not kind of the social dimension. It's the psychological dimension where the sense of self gets reborn all the time. And so that's where the language of letting go, or maineh, or you know, kind of what works for you, or don't go there. And again, as I was saying yesterday about not moving to negative thoughts, if this interaction with this person was very recent and you really got hurt, you're going to get triggered the emotions of that. It's the way it is. And so you have to be very, very patient. But you can try not to go to the story, to the narrative, because the story just recreates much, much more strongly. So then the kind of refuge in awareness, maineh, this is changing, this is an object in awareness, listen to sound, feel, all that kind of makes sense because it takes you out of rebirth, takes you out of that realm. If not, you're always just recreating yourself, and then you meet the person and then you create them. They might have changed, maybe not, but it's pretty hard to actually meet them on neutral ground. And again, you have to be careful. If someone has been really unkind, naturally, you're not going to trust them. But you don't want to live in a kind of egotistical mistrust, because if I do that, if I just allow, say, a state of mind which is very mistrustful of one person, the danger is the whole mindset becomes mistrustful. Because it's not just about that; it's about the momentum of inner attitudes, which then begin to dominate, right? And then then it's very unfortunate. Then it's not just about this person who ripped me off; it's about that person and that person and that person and that person. So to awaken to sanya, perception, sense of self, self and other, you can see is really important in terms of freedom. So Luangpor Cha would use maineh. So you can see how the perception comes up. This person's a ripoff, and this is the reality. And then you say maineh. But what if it really was a ripoff, right? It's not the maineh about the ripoff. It's about the sense of self. Again, that's the issue of suffering, and you still have to be streetwise. And this is going on all the time because we need sanya. If you don't have sanya, how do you interpret life? I have to have it like in the monastery, who is reliable and who's not reliable. Where's the exit door? Or so sanya is a very, very necessary part, but it's the sense of self that we suffer from that we're trying to notice as an object. And then of course there is the chance that the Brahmaviharas have a kind of opportunity to create a different kind of sanya, And then the Brahmaviharas will say, whatever might say, God, I wouldn't want to be that person. It'd be really difficult to have their mind, not as a condemnation, but, well, imagine someone who's so dishonest, what kind of a realm they live in. You know, it would be a helpful way to maybe moderate that, or the perception might change, well, to one of, well, may they be free from suffering, something like that. But that would be sincere. It wouldn't just be a replacement therapy. I hate you, therefore I love you. I hate you, therefore I love you. You know, it wouldn't be that kind of simple, because that doesn't really work. That just doesn't work. But it could be quite sincere, because you'd be processing this, and somehow, and I think we all do this all the time, don't we? We come to a resolution. We say, yeah, that hurt, but I don't want to live in this world. I don't want to inhabit an inner world of resentment and or maybe the other way around. You feel, you know, you were the one that hurt someone. And then each time you see the person, the picture of the person you hurt, and it's not just perception. You realize that you were in the wrong, and each time you see the picture of the person you hurt, then the perception, oh God, why did I do that? I'm such a basket case. Oh, I can't. It's the same thing, isn't it? Perception of self is still arising now. It's just the other way around. It's still, oh, I'm hopeless and oh, and then I watch Netflix. but you could see it's the same practice, not indulging or not believing in the self sense. So in that case, yeah, I could maybe write to the person and say, I'm sorry. I'm sincerely sorry for what I did. And that would be appropriate. But to live in guilt and self-hatred for years and years and years for something that was unfortunate and even stupid, okay. And if you've apologized, is that going to be skillful for you or anyone else? And yet the sense of self could do that. It could really, and you can see how that could lead to depression very easily. You just spiral downwards. So in terms of that aspect, say, of feeling guilt for something done, then I've always found that I just really make it conscious, the unpleasantness of my own lack of care or lack of mindfulness. And that unpleasant feeling is very unpleasant. You know, it really, oh, I don't want this in my mind. And yet if I don't make it conscious, it's like we were talking about fear and things like that. If I don't make that unpleasantness conscious, I divert it into self-hatred. And actually, hating yourself is more pleasant than feeling the unpleasantness of your mistakes. It just feels better, more appropriate to beat yourself up. But to actually like feel, oh, why did I do that? You can't reverse it. You have to feel it. But then when if you really feel it and you stay with it, then that I think leads to compassion, true compassion, a kind of opening of the heart. And those kind of barriers that we get stuck in will always be creating self-thinking, I thinking, my thinking. And that's the symptom. You know, that's the symptom of rebirth or attachment. And then we notice the symptom, and then we try to, it's like this. And or Maine or something like that to get you into the space of knowing rather than believing. Much of our, you know, our lives are both external and internal. We're all at Niranara, right? But we're living in a different world. It's one world, but many worlds, isn't it? And that's the way we sometimes talk about the world in Buddhism, the world that arises and ceases in the 6-foot-long body, in this fathom-long body in the texts. And that's what we mean. So that's a way of thinking about rebirth that's actually provable. And then the other is theory and so on. Luangpor Viradhammo, I think he was sort of adamant that that's really what Paticca Samuppada is about. So Paticca Samuppada sometimes is taught as past lives, present life, and future life. But Luangpor Viradhammo said, no, it's about this Phassa, Vedana, Tanha, Upadana, Bhava, the whole construct of becoming. And you can really see that, like, you just notice that, like in this example of an email, it's just a name. And then bang, you're reborn. And why did he do that to me? And I'm not going to forgive them. You should forgive them. I'm never going to forgive them. No, yes, you should. No, it's just self. And the argument never ends. It just goes on and on and on. And then the awakening, this is a perception. This is a Vedana. This is Sanya. This is thought, not self. And then you have the opening of the mind. So the other way is not to get any emails. But then you live in a cave. Shall we do some meditation then? I won't give you any instruction. We'll just sit quietly, just to try what you want.